This video discusses how to create in-text citations in an APA-style student paper. Each source of information, which you have made a reference for on your reference page, must also have an in-text citation in the text of your paper. The purpose of the reference is to give your reader more information about the sources of information you've used in your paper, so that they could go and find these sources on their own. The format of your reference will vary depending on the type of source your information was from. For instance, you may have used a book or a website, even a movie or some type of social media. Each different source has its own specific format, and examples for each source can be found in the APA manual and online using the Georgian College APA Citing Guide or APA Style website. This might seem overwhelming, but all references have a similar order to their format. As you practice creating references, you will get used to the order of information included in each reference, and it will become easier. Just remember that each different in-text citation must have a matching reference. In-text citations are placed in the text of your paper and can take either a parenthetical or narrative form. In-text citations typically include the author's last name or an organization's name, the year of publication for the information, and if you're quoting the information word for word, you must also include the page or paragraph number for the quote. So, if you're quoting a book, you will likely have a page number. However, if you're quoting something from a web page, you will likely have to count the paragraphs on the web page to determine which paragraph the quote came from. There are two types of ways to include a citation: parenthetical and narrative. In a parenthetical citation, you do not mention the author as part of your sentence. Instead, you put the author's name and year in parentheses at the end of your sentence. If it is a direct quote, you would put the page or paragraph number in there as well. However, alternatively, you can include the author's name as part of your sentence. You will notice in the example above, it says according to Doe. In this case, Doe is the author's last name and has been included as part of the sentence. In this case, the publication year appears in parentheses beside the author's name, and a paraphrasing of Doe's work follows this in-text citation. In-text citations take different forms depending on who your author is and how many you have. If you have one or two authors, you will create the in-text citation by including their last names and the publication year of the source. If there is no publication year, you can use N.D. instead, which stands for no date. Depending on whether you choose to do a parenthetical or narrative in-text citation, and if your source has two authors, you will either need to use an ampersand or the full word "and" in the in-text citation. You'd use the word "and" if creating a narrative in-text citation, but the ampersand if using a parenthetical in-text citation. If you have more than two authors, you do not need to write out all the authors' last names. Instead, you include the first author's last name and then shorten the rest to et al., followed by the publication year. Groups or organizations can also be authors, and sometimes they can be shortened to an abbreviation. For instance, Georgian College could be an author, but it is not abbreviated. However, as you'll see in the example on this slide, the National Institute of Mental Health can be abbreviated to NIMH. If you have an organizational author and want to use its abbreviation instead, you must write out the full name in the first in-text citation and put its abbreviation in brackets alongside it. After that, you can just use the abbreviation throughout the rest of your in-text citations. When it comes to quotes, there are two types: short quotes, which are under 40 words in length, or long quotes, which are 40 words or more. When you want to quote someone else's words directly in the text of your paper, you place quotation marks around the words you've taken to indicate they were written by someone else. You also need to include an in-text citation with the quote to show exactly where the quote came from. As mentioned previously, this can be done in either a parenthetical or narrative way. As you can see in the examples, a parenthetical in-text citation appears following the quote and includes the organizational name, the year of publication, and the page number from which the quote appeared. In the narrative example, the author's name appears as part of the sentence, with the publication year beside it in parentheses. The quote is placed directly after this, followed by the page number, which is also placed in parentheses. Then the sentence is ended with a period, which appears after the paragraph number, rather than at the end of the direct quote. Long quotes, which are 40 words or more, are formatted a bit differently, but can still be in either a parenthetical or narrative form. Long quotes are always formatted as block quotations. This means the entire quote is indented in a large chunk 0.5 inches from the left margin. They begin on a new line in your paper and do not use quotation marks. The text of your paper should always include a sentence leading up to the block quotation. For a parenthetical in-text citation, you would not mention the author as part of the sentence. You would include the author's name, publication year, and page or paragraph number in parentheses at the end of the block quotation. The period would appear at the end of the quote, not after the in-text citation. For a narrative in-text citation, you would include the author's name in the sentence leading up to the block quotation along with the publication year in parentheses. This is demonstrated on the slide where it states, "As explained by the Government of Canada, 2018. The block quotation then begins on the next line and is indented 0.5 inches from the left margin. Then the paragraph number appears at the end of the block quote in parentheses. The period is placed at the end of the block quote rather than after the paragraph number. In most cases, it is preferable to try and paraphrase information rather than quote it directly. By doing this, it shows that you understand what you have learned well enough to explain the information on your own. The method of citation for paraphrased information remains the same. It can take either a parenthetical or narrative form. The main difference is that the page or paragraph number is not mandatory when paraphrasing information, as you may not be able to attribute what you have learned to a specific page or paragraph in the original source. If you can, it's good scholarly practice to still include a page or paragraph number with an in-text citation for paraphrased information, as it helps your reader know where you got your information from in the original source. However, it is not mandatory to include a page or paragraph number when paraphrasing. There are many resources to help you learn about APA. For more APA help, contact the Writing Center and visit the Georgian College APA Guide and the APA website.